Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you.
The record.
Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today being Monday, the 18th of July, 2016. I trust that you all had a wonderful and enjoyable weekend here in the Cayman Islands. Some areas of the island got nice showers of rain. Others, the rain may have skirted them a little bit. We're seeing some unusual weather patterns here in the Cayman Islands these days where one end of the island or maybe even one part of a particular district it's raining and the other section, no rain at all. But we must say that we're extremely thankful for whatever showers of blessing we receive from above. I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and For the Record into your homes, into your places of work, into your vehicles as you traverse the roads of the Cayman Islands. And there are many of you who are not traversing the roads of the Cayman Islands as often as you probably did earlier in the year, simply because it is summer now, school is out, so a lot of you don't have to be on the road transporting your children to and from school. Of course, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I'm your host, Orit Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open, and there is always someone there waiting to take your calls. That beautiful voice is Miss Susan Watson has been rejuvenated and has returned to us on Radio Cayman as well. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. And of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record at candw.ky. And of course, there are those of you who do call in, but basically what you do is you have your comments or your concerns routed through Miss Susan, and then she will pass them on to me. And that's fine. That's extremely fine as well. There are those who like to hear their voices on radio, and there are those who just simply want to get their points across and want to receive replies and clarification in whatever manner that can be done without necessarily having to be on the radio, on the phone as well. And for those of you who want to call in, I'd like to inform you that the Honorable Premier will be with us at 8 o'clock this morning. So until then, we're going to have our open mic and everything until 8 o'clock. But the Premier will be with us this morning, and we will be discussing several issues as well. Of course, For the Record would not be possible without the support of our loyal sponsors. For the Record is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance Insurance Company Limited, Tomorrow Secured. You can call them at 949-9744 or visit them at Alista Towers. Seaboard Marine with 35 shipping routes, including from Houston, New York, Miami, and Jamaica. Visit seaboardmarine.com for shipping schedules and more. Seaboard Marine, shipping shore to shore. And Fidelity Bank. For all your banking and pension needs, call or visit a Fidelity branch today. Let's see what's happening on the... Let's go to the regional scene first and see what's happening there. Horrific accident in Jamaica over the weekend. For those of you who are familiar with Jamaica, Flat Bridge, huge accident on there. I think anywhere between maybe 5 or 6 persons lost their lives in a one vehicle accident on Flat Bridge. We also see that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, is in Jamaica with a delegation. They're there to basically restore and broker friendships and to basically deal with the divisions that have taken place between Jamaica and Trinidad over immigration issues. Jamaicans have complained about their treatment by customs and immigration authorities in Trinidad when they arrive there, and many of them have also been detained and returned to Jamaica as well. And of course, you know about the Shanique Myrie case in Barbados as well, a case that she won when she sued the Barbadian government. At one point in time, she was still having difficulty collecting her monies from them. I think they were just basically trying to sweat her in terms of giving her the money. I believe that she has now obtained that. I believe she's probably back in the United States, residing there as well. But there are issues between Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, and they're there to try to iron those out. Of course, issues between Trinidad and Jamaica go back a long way. You know, when you think about the establishment of the Federation and all other issues, there has always been that back and forth between Jamaica and Trinidad in terms of leadership roles as well. So we trust that those things are ironed out. But again, that raises a huge flag in terms of CARICOM, the single market and economy, the free movement of people within the CARICOM region, whether or not that situation is actually working as well as it was envisaged or intended to work as well. Locally, let's see what's happening locally in our local newspaper. One of our local newspaper, we see the headlines: Caymanian Compass, women at the center of landmark immigration case granted PR. And when you initially read about this, you sort of get the impression that the Chief Justice had granted permanent residence to these two women, and that is actually not the case. It appears as if their action was the result of an application for seeking judicial review, and the Chief Justice basically sent the issue back to the Immigration Appeals Tribunal, and eventually the Immigration Appeals Tribunal granted permanent residence to them. One lady, it appears, had made an application since 2006. And that is one of the issues that I will address here in terms of the length of time that it takes for appeals to be resolved. We know, and I'm aware of this as well, because there was a point in time when the Appeals Tribunal, when I was Cabinet Secretary, and the processing, the administrative portion of the Immigration Appeals Tribunal were handled by the Cabinet Office, and they still are. A tremendous backlog of applications or appeals, and the ability of individuals who give of their time, sitting once or twice a week to deal with hundreds of applications, poses a tremendous amount of pressure and challenge on those individuals. And maybe it is time for government to look at other options, or I believe some improvements have been made in regards to the processing and of appeals, as well as the meetings of the Immigration Appeals Tribunal as well. So we know that improvements have been made in those areas, but something that we really need to look into to reduce whatever backlog may still exist. We have to recognize and acknowledge the fact that people who have been here and who legally qualify for permanent residence should know what their fate and their future should be, and they should know that as quickly as possible. They cannot put their lives on hold while they endure delays in terms of their applications. I am not sure what sort of precedent the Chief Justice's decision in relation to returning the process to the appeals tribunal and the tribunal's decision in relation to those two grants of permanent residence, what that will do, what precedent that will set in terms of future cases. But you can almost bet your bottom dollar that people who are aware of this will be pursuing other claims as well, which causes me to raise the question: with a country the size of the Cayman Islands, I'm going to even say an island the size of the Cayman Islands, population of over 55,000 persons, a population that is increasingly becoming skewed to the extent that the non-indigenous Caymanians will soon outnumber the indigenous Caymanians. Can we sustain a policy whereby we have such an open process for the granting of permanent residence? Is it time, and this is a rhetorical question, it isn't necessarily my position, is it time for us to develop some form of policy where we say, yes, you're welcome to come, you're welcome to work in the Cayman Islands, but we want to remind you, unless you are a person with some close connections to the Cayman Islands, the right for you or the opportunity for you to apply for even permanent residence will be restricted unless you have some Caymanian connections. The question is, can we continue down this road whereby we allow persons, the numbers that we're having here, for those persons to be able to be granted permanent residence? There are those who advocate for an increase in the population of the Cayman Islands in order to generate more revenue. I say those persons who do that and who advocate for that do not necessarily have the interest of the people of the Cayman Islands at heart in terms of the retention of their identity and retention of control over our own destiny here in the Cayman Islands as well. So we may need to look at crafting new immigration policy when it comes not only to the granting of Caymanian status, and we saw the government move extremely swiftly after the grants in 2003. The new government that came into place moved extremely swiftly to curtail the ability of cabinet to grant Caymanian status after the mass grants of over 2,248 or something like that grants. We saw the government move quickly to curtail cabinet's ability to grant Caymanian status. We have to look at permanent residence in the same light, because once a person is granted permanent residence, then that's the one step towards becoming a British Overseas Territory citizen, After 15 years, Caymanian status, and even before that, become a British citizen as well. We don't know whether or not that will change with the Brexit situation. I don't think that that will be impacted by that at all. But again, I'm just throwing it out there for you. Do we need to really look at the grant of permanent residence? Can we continue to afford for every person who comes here on a work permit to have a legitimate right, a legitimate expectation that they may be granted permanent residence if they are here long enough and if they acquire and accumulate all of the points necessary for permanent residence? Think about it. And if you have a view on it, give me a call. Let's talk about it. We're going to take a commercial break now, and when we return, the discussion will continue. So please stay tuned. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We have two callers on hold. Going to the first caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you, sir. I hope you had a good weekend.
Good morning to you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I did, and I trust you had as well.
It was very. I enjoyed it. You know, I'm very grateful. Just this morning, I want to say just a couple of things here. Very careful. Give me a moment. Let me turn my. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, here we are.
Oh.
All right. Just to say that I was thinking about this release of the millions of mosquitoes,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that's been halted until I think it's
Tuesday, this coming
tomorrow,
Tuesday. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, I believe.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that I'm hoping is that the judge may rule in favor of this going through. I'm not a scientist. I've said this before on the radio. But I can't help but think that individuals who believe that you can research the internet, go on a computer,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever you find there is correct. Much of it is not. You have to know a lot about this subject, and I trust those who have been in the lab for years, who worked on it for years, who live and work in Cayman, who raising their families in Cayman. And I have to trust individuals such as those to believe that if you can release several millions of mosquitoes, which the genetically modified mosquito, as I understand it and have read and listened, are those that once they're intermixing with the female mosquito, and then there's no newborn. There are no newborns, which obviously means that you are going to have a drastic reduction in the population of the mosquitoes. Now, we already have, I understand, one or two cases of the Zika virus here in Cayman.
That's correct.
It was apparently came in with two individuals who were not living here. And we hope that this is something which can be, arrested right away so that it does not, spread within our population. We're hoping, we're praying for that. But I can tell you that you have to take a risk sometimes. And to me, the greater risk is not doing something about it. The risk taken by doing something about the mosquitoes after research, after sitting in the lab, after meeting with individuals who know what they're doing over these years. They're trying something new. I would appeal to the Caymanian public, think about this again. Not for that at the moment. Second thing is, Mr. Connor.
Yes, ma'am.
And I won't belabor it too long. But there's one thing that we as Caymanians and as politicians need to understand, is that politicians do not know everything about everything. They know a lot about many things, In some cases, they know nothing about something. But in the case of the recent Finance Committee, I have been very disturbed as a Caymanian citizen. We have individuals who not only have honed their skills by way of experience and being on the job. Many of them have gone on to higher education, to colleges, they've gotten their degrees, they work really hard. I'm speaking about the civil service in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And when politicians have those civil servants, chief officers, and other superior or senior members of staff within the service, they need to understand that while they, in many cases, I hear the word demand, and I'm not sure that that's the term that should be used, but certainly they expect answers to their questions because the people have voted them in to oversee what takes place within the country. In particular, I guess, how the civil service spends their money.
Colin, not only do they expect answers, but they expect truthful and correct answers as well. Not just answers, but correct and truthful.
That's correct. That's right. You want correct and truthful answers.
Yes.
Now, in fairness to our politicians, that's what they should get. But, see, the answer that they get may not always be what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if it is honest and truthful and factual, obviously, that is what the civil servant is there to do. Now, this thing of calling individuals' names over on the airwaves, to me, is definitely not right. Mm-hmm. Remember, civil servants also, in most cases that I know of, particularly in the senior positions, they have to work really hard. They work long hours. You've been there. You know what it's all about. What I want to say is that on one hand, we're talking about government should promote. Government should seek not to have individuals, being held there for a long period of time before they decide to promote that individual or to...
Caller, I'm going to ask you if you can wrap me up real quickly because we want to entertain the other caller that we have before we go to the 8 o'clock news. Real quickly,
okay.
Please.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to say here, these people work hard. They don't have an opportunity of saying what time they're going to get up in the morning or whether they're going to go to a coffee shop and just sit there and chat or whether they're going to stay home for the day. They have to go to work. No, we need to respect that. And we need to understand that as politicians, we have to be extremely careful about, on one hand, saying we want them promoted to the senior position. And on the other hand, those individuals who already occupy those senior positions, in some cases, when I've listened to Finance Committee, they have been grilled and it's almost as if they were in a court of law and they were being questioned about a crime that they're accused of having committed. Mm-hmm. I understand that the questions have to be very, the serious questions. You're talking about the money. But particularly when you have a budget, like we've had this last year, and particularly when you've had the results of the previous year and how the government has improved in so many areas, obviously, the civil service has a lot to do with it. It tells me that they too must be doing something right. Mm-hmm. The politicians who are there and the Minister of Finance and the Premier and all those individuals, we applaud and congratulate them. But we can't overlook what the civil service has done for this to come about. So when they are in there in Finance Committee, they cannot be grilled and drilled, and then on one hand telling them we want to promote you for what? For what? Who would aspire to senior positions if they're going to get in the front in the presence of politicians who seem to think that they know everything about every subject?
Yeah. Okay, caller. Thank you very much, for that point of view. And before we go to the news, I just basically want to say that we have heard members of our Legislative Assembly, even on this show, say that the only opportunity that they get to ask some of these real questions is when Finance Committee is in session. So they take that opportunity to ask those questions then. And they have also pointed out that when they ask questions, they know exactly what it is that they're going after. And sometimes they may be doing that in a very circular way, but they know exactly what they're going after as well. And, as far as senior civil servants are concerned, if you want to be promoted, or if you want to be a civil servant, then you have to also recognize that you are going to be exposed to questions being asked, and for you to be able to provide those questions. Now, normally it is done through the minister as opposed to directly to the civil servant, but there are times when the minister will put the civil servant up front simply because the civil servant can explain much better or give a better answer than can the minister who's a politician. Folks, please stay tuned. We're going to the news now. For the record, we'll be back with the Honourable Premier, Honourable Alden McLaughlin, after the news. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I am your host, Orrit Connor, and it is a pleasure for me to introduce to my listening and viewing audience the Premier of the Cayman Islands, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin. Premier, good morning and welcome back to For the Record.
Morning, OC. Morning to the listening public. Good to be here again. Good to have you back.
Good to be back too.
Trust you had a nice break riding in the mountains.
Yes, I did, but I keep wanting others from Cayman to go up there with me, and it seems as if the times that I choose to go, people can't make it there. But I have my company up there that all of my friends that cycle. But it would really, really be nice to have some of my friends from here go up there and enjoy the experience in the mountains in South Carolina.
You see, my problem is I have this little job here called running the country. And at that particular time, we had to get through the budget and finance committee and all of those matters, so I just couldn't make it. But hopefully we'll get a break in another few months and be able to go ride somewhere in the mountains. Yep.
Hopefully, yeah. Lots to talk about. Lots of things have been happening since you were last on the show, and we know that first of all, this week you will be heading off to Turks and Caicos for the pre-joint ministerial council meeting. So we're going to get you to talk about that. We had the Brexit vote. That was on the 23rd of June that took place.
3 weeks ago now,
Yep, and surprising results. I believe it even surprised those persons who were the proponents of leave the European Union.
You know what they say, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Yes. So those two particular issues. And this morning I was also talking about the Chief Justice's decision in relation to the application. I would imagine it had to be for judicial review for two applicants for permanent residence as well. And then I threw out the question in relation to, do we really need to take a look at the whole issue of permanent residence as well as Caymanian status? Do we still want to throw out there the possibility or the expectation of any person coming and working in the Cayman Islands that they will at least have the opportunity to apply for permanent residence or Caymanian status as well,
if they stay long enough.
Yeah. Yes. But I'll let you lead the conversation this morning.
Yeah. Well, I think we also need to consider carefully the turmoil that the world is in. When I say the world, because it's not just the situation in Europe, and the terrible tragedy of of the 84 people being killed by one man in one truck and 84 seriously injured. I just can't get my head around how that was possible. But that's just the latest in Europe, and particularly in France, of a series of terrorist attacks. Then we have the ongoing situation in Turkey with the attempted coup. Yes. And the serious reaction of Erdogan, the Turkish Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, yes.
As I left home, they had over 6,000 people in custody, including 3,000 plus justices and military individuals. Lord knows where all of that is going to end up. And then, of course, the most recent in the shootings of police officers in Baton Rouge. So, the whole world is in turmoil, and people are in great fear and a great state of uncertainty. And so, things like Brexit almost pale in comparison. But again, that is another example of uncertainty, change, transition, and another situation that presents a great deal of challenge to all of us. Because as we know, the world is so interconnected now, we can't just sit here in Cayman and believe that, well, all of these things are remote and none of them are going to impact us. All of these things have and will impact us, not just because we see them on television so clearly. Often you see them as they're happening. You see a lot of this stuff live now. But the indirect impact of all of these things will be felt in places like the Cayman Islands, because they impact what investors do, what people who travel do, all of the things that we rely on in Cayman, because much of what we have here is the result of inward investment, and all of these things are weighing heavily on my mind. I know as we go into this pre-JMC, for a while there we were wondering. I certainly was wondering whether what we talk about at the pre-JMC, because until just a week ago we didn't know whether or not, or we didn't know when we'd get a new Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. We didn't know who he or she would be, and at least now there's a sense of direction and a greater sense of certainty about what is happening. But of course, part of the fallout, inevitable fallout from a change of Prime Minister, is that the UK is essentially, although it's the same party, it's going to have a very different look government. And one of the most recent casualties of that change and that transition, of course, is that over the weekend we lost our Overseas Territories Minister, James Duddridge, whom I'd gotten to know quite well. And he has, I'm told this morning, he has been replaced by Sir Alan Duncan, whom I don't know at all. And so we're going to have a great deal of things to talk about when we go to Turks and Caicos Islands for the pre-JMC, which is going to be held on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. We will have there, Fabian Picardo, who is the Chief Minister of Gibraltar. And Gibraltar, of course, being actually in continental Europe, sitting right on the edge there and adjacent to Spain, with the tensions that have gone on for literally hundreds of years about that. Gibraltar is understandably very concerned about its future, with the UK having decided to withdraw.
And Gibraltar does enjoy various benefits of the European Union as it now stands as well.
Because they had the unusual, somewhat unusual constitutional situation where, even though they are not a sovereign nation, they were allowed to be a member of the European Union. And now that the UK is withdrawn, they are, I suppose, in even more difficult position than Scotland, because Scotland was not a member of the European Union, even though they have such great ties and affinity for Europe. And so their decision, the Scottish decision now, is to whether or not they think it's more beneficial to remain part of the United Kingdom Union or to become part of the European Union. So a great deal of complexity, a great deal of uncertainty, I think, for the world over the course of the next couple of years. And as I say, you add to those sort of big political issues, the overriding concern about the growing impact of terrorist activity right across the world, and how that impacts human behavior, and even the possibility of attending a public function, or going to a football game. How that affects your thought process, as well as travel across Europe, and indeed to a lesser extent even the United States. There's a greater sense of risk and concern and worry that people are bound to have when you're traveling these days. And then, of course, we've got the U.S. elections that is looming, and the possibility of a very different kind of character inhabiting the Oval Office. So it's I think we're, as they say, we're living in very, very interesting times.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. In the studio with me this morning is the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. In the studio with me this morning, Premier of the Cayman Islands, Honorable Alden McLaughlin. Mr. Premier, we're talking about the pre-joint ministerial council that was mentioned that will take place in Turks and Caicos this week. With the situation with the United Kingdom, the Brexit situation, has that changed the focus and the topics that you were proposing to discuss at the ministerial council? Have you had to rejig your agenda as a result of these changes in the UK?
Well, I think we all knew that Brexit was coming, and so therefore the original agenda was developed with that in mind. But given the way things have evolved, I expect that the agenda will probably wind up with the agenda being adjusted further when we go into the meetings starting on Tuesday. We had already decided in any event to talk about the relationship with the UK Overseas Territories' relationship with the EU, and the key areas of concern for OT governments, and what role the OT governments can expect to have in the UK-EU negotiations about the terms of the exit, and whether or not there was a possibility on the part of those OTs who might be interested in having some kind of future direct relationship with the European Union. I sort of alluded to the situation with Gibraltar just now, because Gibraltar is very, very keen. Obviously, it is part of continental Europe. That there's a geographical, reality there, which doesn't obtain with respect to the other overseas territories that they have to bear in mind. I mean, Gibraltar is a very small place. As I was saying before we opened, I hadn't realized how small a place it was before I went there, because we all grew up, especially my generation, hearing the talk and reading the stories about the Rock of Gibraltar, and you get this impression that this is such a huge place. Well, the Rock is big, but Gibraltar itself is only 7 square kilometers. Right, it's about the size of Little Cayman, and it is got a lot less habitable land than Little Cayman, because while Little Cayman has the swamps, Gibraltar is mostly that rock. And they've spent many of the past decades each year growing land by essentially constant land reclaiming of land from the sea to make the the peninsula bigger. So, and it's got a relatively small population. I think it's about 20,000 people.
Somewhere around there, yes.
So, but it's, it is quite a well-off place, and they want to keep it that way, and they're very proud of their British heritage. Everybody there speaks at least 2 languages, English and Spanish. It's very interesting when you're around them, because they speak English with an almost English accent and British accent, but they switch in and out of English and Spanish when they're talking to each other. I mean, without even like a second thought. Part of the sentence is in English, and the other part is in Spanish. Very, very, very unique and interesting. But obviously, this has placed them in very, very worrying circumstances. To tell you how strongly they felt about remaining part of the European Union, 96% they were able to vote in the referendum. The other overseas territories weren't, but 96% of those who voted to remain. So they feel really, really strongly about this, and so pardon me. We'll have Fabian Picardo, the Chief Minister, in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and obviously he will be pressing the other overseas territories for our support and solidarity on doing whatever we can in terms of supporting Gibraltar's position with the UK in whatever the negotiations are that they're having, that they will have with the European Union on the terms of the exit.
Is the current Chief Minister, is he as vocal as the former one, Peter Carona? Because he was quite vocal.
Yeah, they have they seem to have a tradition of electing QCs. Fabian is a QC.
Yes.
As well. No, he is very, very articulate, very able. I get on very well with him. He actually has practiced in Cayman on a couple of occasions on big cases. I didn't know that until I never met him before, about 3 years ago. But he came to Cayman when we hosted the pre-GMC 2 years ago, and so I think it is a big part of the whole purpose of us having these pre-GMCs, which is something that we recently instituted, is so that overseas territories can have that opportunity prior to the meeting in London to sit down and talk about the issues that are important to us, and that we don't just deal with an agenda that's been foisted upon us by the UK, which is the way it used to be, as you, former CAPSEC, you will remember. So the result of this meeting is that we will help to fix the agenda and put on the agenda the things that we want discussed. Obviously, the UK will add things that they want to discussed as well, and that's fine. But we want to make sure that our issues get addressed. As I said, I was somewhat concerned whether we'd have a JMC, given the extended timetable that they initially talked about in terms of changing the leadership.
Yes.
But things have been fast forward.
Because they were looking at September before
changing. Yeah.
change in
But
leadership.
things have been fast forwarded. There's a new prime minister in place now. Over the weekend, there's a new minister for the overseas territories. So, I think we should collectively, and I certainly will do so on the part of Cayman, at the earliest opportunity, to try to engage with them, with the new minister. Just to make that initial contact. Obviously, he will need some time to get his feet onto the table and come to grip with the issues. But that's the business of politics. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. There is nothing in terms of certainty when it comes to the political process anymore. Ministers come and go, prime ministers come and go.
Yep.
Governments come and go.
Now, as far as the some of the other overseas territories, like the Falklands, like Tristan, also
St. Helena?
St. Helena, yes. Will they be represented at the pre-joint ministerial council as well, or they're representatives from the UK as opposed to someone coming all the way there? We know that there are travel challenges for some of them as well.
Right. I don't know who's confirmed this visit, for this meeting actually. But we certainly when we were in Cayman, when we held a meeting in Cayman, we had representatives. We didn't have anybody from St. Helena, but we had people from the Falklands, and it's a long trip to come to the Caribbean from the Falklands.
Mm-hmm. Now, Premier, you mentioned the new minister, and I've done some Googling on him, Alan Duncan, Sir Alan James Carter Duncan, KCMG, born on the 31st of March, 1957, British Conservative Party politician. Seems as if he has some previous experience in government. He was in the shadow cabinet in 2005. He was appointed as shadow secretary of State for Trade and Industry in December of 2005. So he obviously, at least from the shadow part of things, he is aware. Now, I also notice here that so he's basically, as the junior minister in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, he's Boris Johnson's deputy as well. But what's interesting, and what people in the Cayman Islands may take note of, and I don't know whether or not this will have any impact on us or on him or in the direction that things may go, but it states here on Wikipedia that he was the first openly gay Conservative member of Parliament, having publicly come out in 2002. Now, that may raise some red flags for people not only here in the Cayman Islands, but other overseas territories as well, that are having this discussion, not only discussion, but in the case of Bermuda, where we now see legislation has been put forward, passed by the House of Assembly in Bermuda in relation to gay marriages. It's gone to the Senate. The Senate has rejected the bill. The bill now goes back to the legislature. They can decide to make changes to it, or if they decide that they want it to remain as it is, it has to be 12 months before it actually comes into law. No doubt other overseas territories will face the same questions and the same challenges that we here and the Cayman Islands and Bermuda face when it comes to the whole issue of civil unions and gay marriages.
Right. Well, I was going to say that note I have also says that he is he's in a civil union, with a male partner, and that's been the case for quite some time. So obviously he will have some fairly strong views about those issues. But for Cayman, I've said from the beginning that, and this I think is the bit that somehow I don't seem to get through to some people. Because of the way our Constitution is drafted, that defines that the right to marriage is a right for single people to marry a person of the other sex. So that is the constitutionally guaranteed right. There is no constitutionally guaranteed right for persons of the same sex to marry, and there is no legislation in place that permits that in the Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And certainly my administration is not advocating or promoting any changes with respect to that. The point that we have been faced with and are still faced with respect to the application by Dr. Raznovich and his partner James Reeve was about allowing Dr. Raznovich to be added to the work permit of his partner, Mr. Reeve, as a dependent. And that is the issue with which the Immigration Board was grappling, and the Immigration Appeals Tribunal has been grappling. I I am aware that the Immigration Appeals Tribunal has now rendered its decision. It hasn't been made public yet, as far as I'm aware, but no doubt over the course of the next few days, I would expect that will become public. But the point I keep making over and over again is that we are not and will not be permitted to discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual orientation. Mm-hmm. Now, that is a separate issue from the point I covered a little earlier, which is that there is no right for same-sex persons to be married to each other in the Cayman Islands. The Constitution does not guarantee it. Mm-hmm. None of the legislation we have does. But that is to be distinguished from the issue of whether or not we are permitted to discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual orientation. And we are not. Mm-hmm. We're not under our own Bill of Rights. We're not under the European Convention on Human Rights. And my fear always has been and continues to be that if we were to insist on discriminating in that way, ultimately we might wind up having forced upon us, something that is much more, because the UK still has the ability to legislate for us by order in council. And if they believe that or feel that we are in breach of basic human right principles, there is that risk that they will take those measures. Now, Bermuda is in a slightly different position because of the state of their constitution. The UK can't legislate for them by order in council, but they are still bound by their own Bill of Rights and by the European Convention on Human Rights.
And the Chief Justice, also, sorry for interrupting, the Chief Justice just made a ruling in that in a few weeks ago in that regard as well, in favor of
in Bermuda?
Yeah. That they can't discriminate against a person because of their orientation. Yes.
So, all of these things are going to take some time to fully shake out, but I have no doubt in what the ultimate result is going to be, whether in Bermuda or Cayman, and that is going to be findings that you cannot lawfully discriminate against people on the basis of sexual orientation.
Yes. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, and yourself?
I'm great. God bless you. Good morning, Mr. Alden. How are you this morning?
Good morning, ma'am. I'm very well. How are you?
I am great. Thank you very much for asking. Mr. Alden, it's Katina. And while we may not be seeing eye to eye on a particular topic, I think that we both have the same goal in mind, and that's the best interest of the people in this country. Now, Mr. Alden, the decision to release genetically modified mosquitoes into the environment is not a political decision. While I understand where you may have thought you were right in supporting that release, I want to personally express my objection to it, because the people of this country should be the ones who decide whether or not they are going to have genetically modified mosquitoes in their environment. Now, I'm going to speak for many people who have approached me in the supermarkets and in the parking lots, and who's called my phone, who's sent texts, and who's sent for me to come to their homes. And they're confused. They know that genetically modified mosquitoes are going to be released, but they have no idea what the outcome is going to be. They don't know what to expect. They're aware of the fact that they haven't been informed. They have many questions, and the real confusion that's coming up with this now is that they're now turning to Dwayne and myself for the answers and say, we don't have the answers. We're not supposed to have the answers. These answers, these questions were supposed to have been posed from a long time ago and answered procured. Even if those answers were, we don't know. We don't know what the outcome is going to be in 10 years. And we don't know what the outcome will be in 15. I'm really sorry. We don't know what's going to happen in 30 years. Those, sir, are the questions and the answers that need to be put and brought by the people. And this is not about Katina and Dwayne, and it's not about Alden and the governor and the deputy governor. It's about the people of the Cayman Islands, and they are misinformed. And personally speaking, I feel boxed in. I feel like I live in Cuba, where I don't have a right to voice my opinion, because in doing so, we've come under attack. We've come under attack from the government itself, and we've come under attack from the people, because they don't understand, and they think that because the government has presented it, it must be good. And that's a very false sense of security that they're wearing for a uniform.
Katina, what attack have you been under from the government? I'm confused because I'm the Minister of Health in Premier. I am not aware of any such attack. In fact, the converse is true. Dwayne has actually hired some big-time lawyers and has filed an application for judicial review. He has gotten a stay, and at the moment, there are no mosquitoes being released. So where is the attack from the government? Okay,
well, sir, you see, when we first petitioned the government, because we asked for a suspension until we had the opportunity to participate in proper public consultation, the government said, no, I'm sorry that we're not going to do that. And then you aired the video for the consultation meeting that happened at the Westway Town Hall. But the public consultation section was edited and removed, and so it only left the presentation and not the concerns. Now, sir, the fact that...
I'm asking about the attack. You allege that you were under attack by the government. I'm trying to find out the nature of that attack, because I'm not aware of any attack being made on you or anybody else by the government.
When Dr. Petrie, said with his negative campaign of our questioning of the procedure, accused me of being false and misleading, he attacked my character, sir. He defamed me, because what I did was I took the information that was available to me, something I should not have had to have done, because that public consultation process should have happened. I should have posed those questions and brought those concerns in a public forum, at a public town hall, having already been made aware of the meetings that were going to happen, scheduled meetings, so if I can't make the one in West Bay, at least I can make the one in East Bay. So I took the information that was available to me, and if I used the wrong resource, sir, I was forced to, because the right resource didn't provide me with the resources. And then the government, MRCU, i.e. Dr. Petrie, and you can turn that straight around if you want to, but he's a representative of my government, said that I had presented false and misleading reports. He attacked my character, sir. He assailed me. Okay? And there's been an onslaught of negative media campaign calling us all sorts of names that we're uninformed and so on and so. And you know what, sir? I own that title. I own the title of being uninformed, misinformed, and misinforming, because government has left me with no other title to wear. You certainly can't say I've slandered anybody, because I have not. No, Your Honor, I read this morning about the Oxitec survey of West Bay, and I need an answer to this. How is the company who is presenting the technology allowed to gather surveys in the community in which it is aiming to release in the first initial rollout by its own employees, not paid independent people from the community? They have 4 Caymanians in their employ, and they're using those 4 Caymanians as Arabian horses, sir. But they're putting a riding on top of them. They're going out there in the public face, and they're using them to reach us. Now, I want you to tell me, sir, how Oxitec ended up conducting a survey in my community. I didn't even know it was going to happen. But I would have personally accompanied them to make sure that every home that they went to, that the people understood the questions that they were being asked and the purpose behind those. Now, you see, I'm going to put it out there, Mr. Alden. I believe that this survey wasn't particularly a survey, But it was another fine-spoken propaganda machinery, which Oxitec and MRCU, which is now fondly named as Oxigov, has a well-oiled piece of machinery. And the only thing I can say to that is this: I'm not blind, I'm not stupid, and I'm not dumb. That piece of consultation is an absolute insult to anybody in this country who has two bits of sense and who can see through it, whether they want to look at it through spiritual eyes or physical eyes. I am ashamed. I am absolutely ashamed at the way that this government is allowing Oxitec to manipulate the people of this country and beat on us with an issue and abuse us in an issue of which you have citizens in this country who are concerned and objective to this.
Katina, I've listened to you. What's missing from all of that you've said is any objectivity at all, or any acknowledgement of the reality of the threat that the Cayman Islands and the rest of the world are under from this most dangerous vector called Aedes aegypti. We have Zika, we have dengue, we have chikungunya. These are major international health threats. This government is acting most responsibly. We have the attention of jurisdictions all around the world because we are actually doing something to control the vector. We know now we have 3 recorded cases of Zika that are imported. What do you think the impact of not controlling the Aedes aegypti? They're biting those people who have Zika and spreading Zika across Cayman, what the impact of that is going to have on the local population. What do you think the impact of that knowledge will have on our tourism industry and the travel of people here? I know that what is being done by Dwayne is purely political. He's been a political candidate before. He's no doubt intending to be a political candidate again, and he wants a platform from which to launch his campaign. But this is irresponsible to the highest extent. Anyhow, they've applied to the court. He's gotten a stay. The matter will be heard on Tuesday, and then we'll know whether or not the mosquitoes can be released. If the court rules that they can't, then we're in another sphere altogether. But I can tell you that as Premier and as Minister of Health, I cannot and will not sit by and have a major health threat go unaddressed, because that would be even more irresponsible than what Dwayne and yourself are conducting.
Program machine, like somebody wrote that speech and had you rehearse that for the last 6 weeks consecutively. Like you edit, you bred it, you slept it, you speak it.
Listen, can
Caller, do you want to be adversarial or do you want to get a point across?
Right. Make your point, but please don't be insulting, because I have not been insulting to you.
Right? But I can't get it across because he continues.
But you were speaking for just now.
Oh, no. About the Zika threat. I want you to show me the evidence that says addressing the Aedes aegypti mosquito eliminates Zika. The fact is Zika is a sexually transmitted disease as well. It's also highly contaminable even through saliva. So what you need to embark on is a proper public consultation process through which you can present Zika, its causes, and any potential to address it, including the Wolbachia bacteria.
Caller, I'm going to ask you to leave us there at this stage. We have other callers lined up. We're going to go to the phone lines. Next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. Welcome back.
On the Zika virus situation, I won't belabor this, but I will say this much. I was at the Cayman Islands Hospital just a few weeks ago. I had an appointment. As I was waiting around, just a short distance from a young lady who was handing out some papers. I noticed that, she said a few words. People signed. In other cases, people just sort of waved their hands and said, have no time or whatever, and they didn't sign. And when it came that I was passing her, and she said to me what it was about. It was about the effort to curtail the, dispensing the millions of mosquitoes and so on and so forth. And I said to her, well, quite frankly, it's not something that I'm going to sign. You have a whole sheet of paper there with a lot of, I don't know what's in it. But I said, I also noticed that a lot of people are signing without reading it. I normally don't sign things that I don't read, and certainly I won't be signing that today. But in any case, I want you to know that I'm not against the effort of the MRCU and the Public Health Department on the island to do something about the threat of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. So I just kindly told her I hope she had a good day, and I left. What I observed while I was there is that so many people were asked to sign this, even though I could not tell you what the short conversation was between the young lady and those who were passing by. But obviously, many of them may have said, I can't sign it unless I read it, or they simply said, I'm not with you on this. So all I'm saying here, when we speak about the numbers who have signed on, based on that experience that I had while I was up there at that particular time, I am wondering how many of those who have signed on are fully aware of what they were signing on to. The young lady, I respect her for, she has something that she wants to get across to the Caymanian public. I have no problem with that. I'm only saying when it comes to being in the dark about something, I'm not sure that the government has not given advance notice. And we've heard them on Radio Cayman a number of times, Dr. Pedley and others, Petrie and others.
Yeah, Dr. Petrie.
And what I'm saying is that they've tried to educate the public. And with many questions coming into the talk shows, they have tried to answer. These people live in Cayman, work here, have families here. I'm not sure that they would be embarking on something which is that risky. But I'll tell you what, if Cayman Islands can do something about it, I think we better. And those who are trying to fight against this had better think of what the consequences might be if we don't move in this direction. Because if we can destroy the numbers, the chances are far less great as to the way that this disease can be spread. So I thank you for your time. Mr. Premier, good morning to you, sir. Good morning to OC again. I hope you all have a very good day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, caller, and the same to you as well.
See, if you don't mind, I'd really like to address this issue.
Okay.
How many callers we have waiting? Because I don't want to keep waiting.
No, we're going to just, we missed one of our breaks, but we'll make up for it.
Okay. Because this is a major issue. As I said, and clearly the opposition to the GM mosquitoes being released is very well funded. They've got a top law firm that is managing this thing. They've applied for on last Wednesday evening and obtained a stay so that the mosquitoes which were scheduled to have been released on Thursday of last week were not released and have been destroyed. And the hearing is tomorrow. So I don't want to prejudge the hearing, and I really wasn't going to raise the issue at all. But now that it's been raised, I think I need to say a few things about what was done by government and about the nature of this exercise to try to address some of the misleading things that were said by Katina. There was a pilot program in 2010 in which, I don't remember the number, but a significant number of GM, genetically modified mosquitoes, were released in East End. Mm-hmm. The same Aedes aegypti. They, of course, had done a survey of the area and determined, as they do by the trapping system, they can estimate what the population is of areas of a particular type of mosquito in an area. The results of that exercise demonstrated that they had reduced, as a result of this exercise, they reduced the number of Aedes aegypti mosquito in the area by 93%. By 93%. I don't know, none of us have heard anyone complain about any adverse consequence as a result of that. Let's talk a little bit about what has been genetically modified with these mosquitoes. These eggs have been injected with genetically modified material, so that the genes, there are two different genes. One is a life-shortening gene, which that's a principal one, so that the mosquito, the male mosquito, and these are all the ones that are released are all male mosquitoes. Male mosquitoes do not bite humans because they don't feed on blood. They feed on fruit juices. So you'll see them sometime around a mango on the ground or plum or whatever the case may be. It is only the female mosquito that bites. So when the larvae hatches, they go through a sex sorting exercise, so that the only ones that are released or that are planned for release into the public are the male mosquito. Mm-hmm. The objective is that this male mosquito with this life-shortening gene will mate with the wild females. The females only mate once. Their lifespan is about 7 to 9 days. And once they've done their job, they die. Mm-hmm. And the mosquitoes which hatch, or the pupae, the larvae which hatch, does not survive into maturity to be able to take the next generation forward. That's the way this works. So the chances of this in any way impacting humans is beyond me. I mean, I'm no scientist, but you're dealing with a mosquito that does not bite humans in the first place, and the progeny of the female who has mated with that male dies before it reaches maturity. So besides this research and this work is supported by the WHO and a whole range of other international agencies. What Katina may not be old enough to remember really is where Cayman has come from in terms of mosquito control, and what occurred here with the startup of MRCU in the 60s. I'm keenly aware of it because my father was very much involved in it as public health officer at the time. But the genius of Dr. Marco Giglioli, and who came in as an entomologist, is really what has made Cayman, the Cayman that we know now, possible. For without us having gotten a firm control on mosquitoes, the development of our financial services industry, tourism, none of that would be possible. I mean, I grew up in a time, and you're older than me, so you know it even better, when we used to still walk about with smoke pots during the rainy season in broad day. If you went up in the bush, which I spent a lot of time in, as a young man, you had to make up fire before you could do any work because mosquitoes would kill you. In the real rainy season, the bad mosquito season, mosquitoes were known to suffocate cattle. That's how bad things here were. And because of our work over the course of the last 50 years or so in Cayman, and the expertise that Cayman has developed and the success that our programs have had, MRCU is internationally regarded as a really excellent research and development and control unit with respect to entomology, but specifically with respect to mosquito control. So that is why you see organizations like Oxitec wanting to partner with MRCU with these programs because of the level of expertise that we have here. On Wednesday, I had the privilege of taking the Jamaican Minister for Health, Minister Tufton, on a tour of MRCU. He was here, among other things, to look at Health City, but among other things, to look at what we are doing to seek to control this very dangerous vector, because it's not just Zika, it is dengue, it is chikungunya that the Aedes aegypti is spreading. Mm-hmm. I mean, he said to me, and I was shocked, that 70 people had died of chikungunya in Jamaica, and that they had at present 178 suspected cases of pregnant women who had been exposed, they believe had been exposed to the Zika virus. They were still going through the testing. He was keenly interested in what we were doing here, because this is the sort of thing that they would want to be able to employ there to help control the Aedes aegypti mosquito. And for many people who don't appreciate this, the great difficulty, we had eradicated Aedes aegypti in Cayman for many years, but it got re-imported. And in the aftermath of Hurricane Ivan, because there were just so many of the habitats that they like around, it really got, the numbers really got, started to climb significantly. The Aedes aegypti mosquito lives and prefers to live around human habitation. They like to lay their eggs in clean, still water. So if you got an old tire or a bird bath or some little container or whatever it is in your yard, that is where they are likely to lay. And they like to, because they want to ensure or improve their chances of survival of their larvae, they lay in more than one place. They don't deposit all of the eggs in one area. And the Aedes aegypti mosquito is not the mosquito that bites you at night, because they don't bite after dusk. So the mosquitoes that are troubling you around during the day, they may be, not necessarily they are, but they may be Aedes aegypti. But the ones that bite you at night, that's not Aedes aegypti.
Okay.
And of course, because it is a daylight mosquito, it is even more difficult to control in the usual way, because you can't spray for it in the same way because of the heat and what the heat does to the pesticide that they use. The heat causes it to rise rather than fall. And so you have to look, and it is increasingly difficult, not just in Cayman, but the world over, to find effective pesticides to deal with the Aedes aegypti. And of course, there's a much greater risk, in my view, of pesticides harming humans in our environment than the use of genetically modified mosquitoes, which are about reducing, by the mating process, reducing the numbers of the next generation of mosquito. So I've said all of that, really, and that wasn't what I came on the show to do this morning. But one deals with the things as they arise, yep, to try to help inform people about what this is, and that the government is not about exposing our people to risk. All of us live here, me, Minister of Health and Premier too, and my wife and my children and my family. So please believe that we are satisfied with the results and the research that has been done, that this is an entirely safe exercise. And we also have to bear in mind the huge risks of dengue, chikungunya, and Zika, not just to the local population, but to our reputation as a jurisdiction which relies so heavily on tourism and the general immigration of people from all over the world. We see already what's happened in Brazil, even with the Olympic Games,
yes,
because of people's concern about traveling to a jurisdiction where Zika is prevalent.
Okay. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. Please stay tuned. We're going to a commercial break now. For the Record, we'll be back immediately after that break. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands. We're getting close to that time of the morning when the show is over, but we want to try to accommodate everyone. We have 2 callers online, so we're going to ask callers to be as brief as possible because we still haven't even touched on some of the things that the Premier wanted to talk about. First caller.
Going fast.
Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, and I apologize to Mr. Premier because I kind of joined your show late, but I'm aware this wasn't his topic of choice, what I'm going to put forward here. But not talking about the Zika question too much. I'll ask something about that, but not talking about the Zika question too much, but thinking outside the box. I'm one for thinking outside the box, which we don't do enough here in the Cayman Islands. But my topic this morning, just want to say a few quick words on the topic of diabetes, which is also a scourge in the Cayman Islands, but from the Caymanian context, I think it's only a problem to the Cayman population. But anyway, we're talking about amputation, so on and so forth. I think of 2 amputees, double amputees, lower limbs, so on and so forth. And I've got a host of friends that are punishing with this diabetes situation and fearing amputations and just living in that turmoil. And I would just ask the Premier, since we're talking about genetically modified mosquitoes to help with the Zika issue, if we could consider fish and maggots to help with the diabetes issue. I personally don't even need an answer. I'm asking the Premier to consider, which does not necessitate him answering me on the issue. But about the issue of Zika, my question would be, what is the cost of that going to be, the dollars and cents to the country? Thank you.
Well, there are 2 costs: the cost of doing and the cost of not doing something as well.
Right. Well, I can, and no doubt we will release the actual numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head, but this is a partnership between Oxitec and MRCU. So the cost of providing the mosquito larvae and so forth is being borne by Oxitec, and in partnership with MRCU. But I'm sure we can release the numbers once we know what they are. But as you said, the government views this as a national health threat, the possibility of the spread of these 3 diseases and its impact not just on the health of the people in this country, but the impact on our industries if people fear that Cayman is not a safe place for which they can come. So I'll look for those numbers. And back on the issue, which I know is a is a major concern of my friend who just called, because we have talked about this before. What he's speaking about is practices that have been introduced in some other places of using live fish actually, and maggots to help with the healing process with respect to persons who are suffering from diabetes. I think all of us know that people who have diabetes, if they get a cut or a bite or anything like that, it can take ages to heal. And often it doesn't heal at all. And in many cases, what happens is you wind up taking off a toe or 2 toes, then part of the foot, then part of the leg, in an attempt to keep the gangrene from actually killing the individual. And what she has talked to me about on a number of occasions is whether or not we should do some of these trials in Cayman as a means of trying to avoid these cases of amputation.
Okay. Let's go to the other caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Morning, ma'am. How are you?
Very thankful and blessed. And good morning, Premier.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very thankful and blessed.
Good,
and it's good to hear you. It's good to hear you. I need to tell you something else again now, sir.
Uh-huh.
Remember the other day I called concerning the mold situations?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That still hasn't left my mind.
You mean the mole at the fire stations you're talking about?
And the hospital.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And the clinics.
Right.
Remember?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now. I know that you're not a minister for the flu. The telephone people there.
Right.
Oh, they're a mess. But another thing, about the line, the telephone lines that go for the. Well, I'm from Recipe. I guess you can hear that.
Yes, ma'am. I'm married to one. I know how it sounds.
Okay. Good people though.
Yes, of course.
Okay, now listen, get good to this now. Let's put all jokes aside. Serious matters. The telephone line that you normally, for the Recipe district, I'm only speaking of Recipe, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
For the Recipe district, when you normally would dial the number for the Recipe district, if it did not get through then, it was because the two receptionists are either both on the two phones or they are tending to patients. But now it got this line. I'm not sure how long, but it's been for months and months and months, and it's disgusting and making you.
Sorry, ma'am. Where are you calling? That's creating this problem?
To the West Bay Clinic.
West Bay Clinic. Okay.
Okay. When you call up until today is Monday now, up until I take it, I write things down, because I'm getting kind of on this. I am a senior, so I'm kind of, I don't have Alzheimer's, but I have to write things down sometimes. Okay. You call there, and you won't get through, and you can't get through at the time. Oh, the same system up at HSA, but
Caller, we're going to need you to get to the point. We're running out of time.
Yeah, the point is this: when you call to the West Bay Clinic, or when I call to the West Bay Clinic, and they are busy, like I said before, either on phones or turning to patients. It says, okay, punch another one again, and then you leave a message. And it ends up then about general practice at HSA.
Okay.
With that message, I've been waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks from other calls, and again for last week, and no.
So you are saying that when you leave the message, people don't call you back?
No, that part. But what really gets to me is when you say, okay, you got an appointment, you press 1. Then you can hear, okay, they're busy now because they're tending to other people or whatever. And they tell you again, press another one, and when you press the other one, then it ends up a general practice. Then you leave a message there, and nobody gets back to you.
Okay, Premier,
okay.
You wanna?
Okay, well, I've recorded that complaint. I'll inquire and see if we can improve the situation.
Okay, caller, hope you heard that, what the Premier has said. Let's go to the other caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning.
Morning.
2 quick statements I want to make.
Sure.
Regarding diabetes. That diabetes is as a result of our eating habits. Type 2 diabetes, that is. And it's reversible by changing our diet. Doctors tell us all the time we need to eat better. Otherwise, we're going to get sick. And it can be addressed by diet. I won't get into too much detail at the moment, but it has been demonstrated that is the case. Regarding Zika, I know that it's difficult to control people going to other countries, especially countries where Zika is a hot spot. Those areas are hot spots. But I think this is a serious matter, and I think we need to really and seriously consider asking people, look, travel. It's been tradition. You travel to these places for vacation, but we're having an outbreak, and it's going to cause us a big problem here. And we really, I think we need to get people to understand the importance of not bringing it here. Once it gets here in big enough quantities, then we're going to have even bigger problems then.
Which is why we have to control the vector.
Well, yes. The mosquito is one of our problems now, but it's no longer our only problem. And what I'm trying to address is, I'm going to say it as best as I can. And we know the thinking of some people going to Cuba and to Honduras and the reason why they go to those places. But when you import the problem into the island, and it's sexually transmitted in the case of Zika, that is just a ticking time bomb. And so I don't know how we're going to really and truly address it. But I think whatever we do about that, we need to take the drastic actions at this moment and not leave it and let it become like how the green iguana situation was left alone. But I want to encourage the MRCU to also put traps around people's houses. For me, personally speaking, I would be willing to pay for the traps that would be put on my property in order to try to reduce the Aedes aegypti.
Well, actually, I'm not sure how much, how effective the traps are in that regard in terms of reducing the numbers. What the traps do are really give them an indication of what the population is in a particular area. And then having used the traps, what they're actually doing is going house to house in areas where there are high numbers and doing disinfection exercises, in other words, spraying.
What I would say about that is that I was doing some research about traps, and there's some pretty innovative things that people are doing, and I think that what it's basically doing is simulating an environment that's very conducive for them to lay their eggs, and it's designed in such a way that the larvae is able to go into the water and grow, but there's a screen that's on it that, with the mesh being a size that prevents them from actually being able to get back out once they have started to grow, and therefore they then just stay there and die. And I'm just saying that I think we need to attack this from as many perspectives as possible.
I think you would be impressed if you sat down with Dr. Petrie and he explained to you the measures that then this is not just yesterday, that they use. Cayman is really on the forefront of much of mosquito control, because we had a bigger problem than most places in the world, and we would, as I said, we wouldn't have what's modern day Cayman today had that not been addressed. So I think you would be impressed really to learn what they do on a daily basis.
Okay, caller, very, very quickly, if you can wrap up, please.
It's not that I'm unimpressed with MRCU. I am. I'm just saying that when I look around my house, there are no traps in order to assist in reducing the population, and I personally would be willing to pay for traps on my property to be able to reduce the population.
Point taken, caller. Thank you very much, for that. Premier, I'm hosting talk today at 12 o'clock. I mean, we can go right on until until then, if you want. I know you didn't get an opportunity to speak on a lot of the subjects that we wanted, but we're going to continue the conversation as long as we can.
This is a talk show, right? And if people want to talk about something else, I'm happy to talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah. Now, we did mention the application for judicial review that's going to be heard tomorrow. And as a lawyer, wearing your lawyer's
don't ask me to predict the outcome now.
No, not the outcome. But explain to our listening and viewing audience what the whole process of judicial review and what the results are in terms of the justice who's looking at it is looking at process and as opposed to making a decision as to whether or not it should move forward or what.
Okay, fine. So what is being judicially reviewed is the decision of the National Conservation Council to grant permission for the release of these genetically modified mosquitoes into the Cayman environment.
Right.
Because under the National Conservation Law, the National Conservation Council is charged with responsibility for determining whether or not any genetically modified organisms should be released or can be released into the Cayman environment. Mm-hmm. So the applicants are saying that the National Conservation Council erred in their decision because there hadn't been adequate consultation, that they took into account things they shouldn't take into account or didn't take into account things that they should have. And therefore, their decision should be quashed. So if the applicants were to succeed in that, the decision which has allowed this permission, which has granted this permission, would fall away. And if the project is to continue, a new application would have to be made, and or the National Conservation Council would have to go through the process again and ensure that all of the various things that the court had identified that they didn't do, they've done. And then another decision would be taken.
Would the justice looking at that have to take into consideration the exigency of the situation, the urgency of it, the threat that is being posed by the Zika virus?
I would think so. I'm hesitant to go too far in this because I don't want to be seen as seeking anyone saying that I was trying to influence. Not that the judge could pay me any mind, but it's just public perception. Because I never forget in these things that I'm the premier, you know, and that counts for something. yes. In most people's minds.
Well, I would say then that I would imagine that the judge looking into it would take into consideration not only the process, whether or not the process has been followed, but the urgency of the situation as well, and the extreme threat that it poses, the Zika virus poses to the population of the Cayman Islands, as well. And on the balance, take those things into consideration also. But we will wait and see what happens on Tuesday. We talked about Alan Duncan being in a partnership, civil partnership. And just to remind our listening and viewing audience as well that we previously had a minister for the overseas, Alan Duncan, sorry. Yeah. We previously had a minister for the overseas territories who was also gay, Mr. Chris Bryant, as well. So nothing that we should get alarmed about, at this moment. We've been down that road before, and I am sure that he will be, as objective as any other minister when it comes to the overseas territories as well.
At the end of the day, people are people, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their gender. We're all people, and that's how I view life.
Okay. So you leave tomorrow for the meeting, Joint Ministerial Council meeting. We will extend an invitation for you when you get back to talk more about that and tell us what has actually transpired there, what you are allowed to say in terms of what has transpired there, as well, and maybe get some of the views of the other overseas territories leaders in terms of, what they have said and what their views are as well.
Well, actually, I had dinner last night with the Chief Minister of Anguilla, who is visiting, Victor Banks.
Yes.
He won't be at the pre-GMC. He's sending his deputy because he has another engagement. But he's come to look at Health City and what is possible there. I mean, that I think is what's happening at Health City is absolutely incredible and hugely exciting. They're getting a lot of them. They keep fairly low key and quiet. They don't make a big fuss about it, but they are getting a tremendous amount of not just inquiries but visitations from places, people from all places all over the region, to see how Health City can help address their various healthcare needs. And as I said, we had the Minister of Health from Jamaica last week, and this week they have the Chief Minister of Anguilla. And previously they had a delegation from the British Virgin Islands, all very interested to see how Health City can help address their healthcare needs in a more affordable way. So I think that the prospects for that and for what health tourism it are just immense going forward. Because of course when people come, they come for care, but they bring people with them, if some family member or at least somebody to help look after them. So I think things are going very well on that front. We can talk about that some other time. But I just thought I wanted to mention that my old friend Victor is here.
Yep, I think the last time I saw him, we were playing dominoes after a meeting. But yes, he's Victor Banks is back.
He was Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance, yes, he was as well. Yeah, yes, and they're facing their challenges, as well. Yes. When it comes to development and other issues, but. It is good that we can share our successes and we can also share in our failures, with the overseas territories and learn from each other. No one is trying to keep any top secrets from the other one. We're all trying to help each other in that regard as well, and that is commendable.
Listen, we have our challenges and things are not perfect by any means in Cayman, but I can tell you, this is still one of the very best places in all of the world. I have my share of challenges as Premier. But I was reflecting over the weekend. I said, Al, you may have your challenges, but tell the truth. It's got to be better and easier to be Premier of the Cayman Islands than Prime Minister of England, Turkey, or France, or President of the United
States of America. Yes,
we are blessed.
Yep. Or even in charge of the European Union now as well.
I'll keep this job any day. The others might have more power. That's all right. I'm happy with this one.
Well, Premier, we want to thank you for being here. We know that we weren't able to accommodate as many calls as we would have loved to. Also, to give people a chance, an opportunity to vent as long as they would like to. But we have to bear in mind that it is a talk show, and we have a limited amount of time. But I must say that for those of you who didn't get the opportunity to vent and elaborate, you may do so at 12:15. Today I will be hosting talk today as well, co-hosting guest hosting for Sterling Dwayne Ebank, so you can join me then. But I want to thank those of you who have tuned into Radio Cayman this morning, and in particular to For the Record. We also want to thank our sponsors. For the Record is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance Insurance Company Limited, Tomorrow Secured. You can call them at 949-9744. Visit them in Alista Towers, Seaboard Marine, with 35 shipping routes, including from Houston, New York, Miami, and Jamaica. Visit seaboardmarine.com for shipping schedules and more. Seaboard Marine, shipping shore to shore. And Fidelity Bank, for all your banking and pension needs, call or visit a Fidelity branch today. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who is less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity. We always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. I want to encourage you to continue to listen to your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join me at 12 noon when as I said earlier, will be filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. I say to you, have a great day, and may God continue to bless these 3 Cayman Islands.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.